not with the dog, which means that I'm going to check out the Confederate Whitehouse in Richmond, Virginia. So this is the Whitehouse Confederacy, built in 1818. It's a residence of John Breckinridge. So not initially built actually as the White House, which is interesting, built for a different purpose back in 1818. Executive Mansion for the Confederate States of America, 1861 to 65. President Jefferson Davis obviously lived here. Served for 5 years, orders of the Federal Occupation Troops. So this is kind of ground zero for the Civil War, obviously. It became one of Richmond's finest public schools, so that it actually converted into a public school after, but now since they've taken it to a museum. And then the mansion was saved from demolishment and restored the house to its wartime appearance. So everything is authentic and looked exactly like it looked like in the Civil War. So pretty cool. And I've been to this museum before. I've been to this museum about 5 years ago. But there's a lot of cool stuff to see. So we're going to try to find the entrance. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. What's she selling?
Huh?
You got a few different. Oh, you need smoke? Yeah, I got you.
No. I never said I needed one, but I will take one.
I got you.
Well, are you on Instagram Live?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram Live. Want to say hello? Okay.
You should add me. I'm Driven 87.
Oh, what is it?
Driven 87.
Driven 87.
Yeah,
we'll add you.
The greatest drummer that this town has to offer.
No shit. Okay.
No.
Wow. All right. Driven 87. Driven 87.
Driven 87.
Beautiful.
RVA review. Yes.
Very cool. So you got a musical rep.
Smoking 804.
Okay.
Yeah.
Smoking in the 804.
Best thing smoking 804.
Okay.
Delivery service for people.
Oh,
who like
no
cannabis.
shit. Oh yeah, actually.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'll take one.
Yeah, that's all you.
Professionals, you know what I mean?
Yeah, actually.
Adamant professional, you know what I mean?
And telling the Instagram again, because I'm going to use it.
Driven
87.
87.
You get the delivery on deck.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I also have a non-profit for the kids.
Oh, ready? God bless.
Who's got money? You ready? If you got money, stand up. All right. RVA review.
RVA review.
Yeah, man. RVA, REVUE. RVA review.
Cool.
Then you got one more. RVA reads.
RVA reads.
Very simple. RVA READS.
What made you want to help people out in the community? You just feel like they need a good role model, good stuff to do, get invested in music. Yeah. Got to have that outlet.
You don't have outlet.
Yeah.
Power go dead, you know.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So what are you doing today?
I was going to give people a tour of the museum over here.
Which one?
Confederate House, White House, which I don't even know where the entrance is. I guess back there would be my guess.
Over there.
Okay, on the side.
The Confederate House.
Yeah.
All right, so let me tell you about the Confederacy.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I had some issues.
All right, here we go. Well, I got a question.
Yeah.
Will the South indeed rise again?
I mean, I would hope not, but some people would hope so, I guess, depending on what your politics are.
The South won't rise again, bro. It's over. It's over.
Hell yeah.
It's over.
That's all it is. Yeah. You ain't wrong. Some people want it to rise again. You know, the funniest thing is because you see some of the old Civil War places. I was in like Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Flip the camera so people see you.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah, I'm on. Driven 87. Triple jacket, man.
Triple jacket. You got the fly jackets. I like it. Helping out the community. Well-known drummer.
Yeah, well-known. Everybody knows.
You get your bug delivered.
The man plays for Akon.
Okay.
Akon and Young G's.
Oh wow. Okay, guys know them all.
The man also getting ready to work with Drake.
Oh shit. Okay. You got connections.
The man is blessed, you know.
Amen.
Blessed from God, you know.
Amen. I love that. It's words to live by.
All right,
Glad you're helping out.
Hey, follow me up real quick.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Not them, you.
Yeah. What's up?
So follow me.
Follow you? Oh yeah, definitely. Here, I got it.
Yeah, I want it.
Good to have that connection. Appreciate all your work. And yeah, I'm gonna hit you up.
Yeah, you guys got to come to the church, man.
I'd love that.
Yeah, my church is Love Cathedral.
Love Cathedral. Perfect.
Yeah. It's on 30 East Broad Rock.
Okay, 30 East Broadway, Love Cathedral.
Broad Rock.
Broad Rock. Okay, cool. Good to meet you. Thank you for all you're doing. I appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to try to find this entrance and see what's happening. Easier said than done, but it is open. You just got to find the right way to get to it. But over here is also where VCU is. That's Virginia Commonwealth University, which is a pretty well-known, famous university. So it's a really pretty into the woods. I'm just going to let this guy pass before I actually go to the right entrance, which appears to be right here. But I'm going to let this dude pass, or else we'd be talking for over 2 hours. And I think some of you guys want to check out the museum. All right, so now we'll go to the right entrance. Now that this dude has passed, sometimes you gotta wait for people. Though he was cool. It looks like he's helping out the community. You could also get some cannabis delivery. What more can you ask for in the world? I'd say not much. Well, we'll try for this front entrance. I don't know if you could actually go in it or not. No, it's locked. It's got to be on the side. It's a big hospital, VCU. Yeah, how the hell do you think if you want to promote a museum, you'd make it fairly easy to get inside? Oh no, do you have to take tours? It might not be self-guided. Well, that's all right if you want to see a tour guide talk about it. That's cool. Admission and tours this way. All right, Whitehouse tours. Guys, I'm going to put the phone down just so I can buy a ticket. How you doing? I just want to get a ticket for the Whitehouse Confederacy.
You bought tickets ahead of time?
No.
Okay.
Just drop it in.
Are you student, teacher, military?
None.
Can I get your zip code?
Yeah, 10010.
Okay.
Here.
Please from here. Sticking around just a few minutes because I appear to be missing people, but we'll see.
Okay, cool. As a headache, I got a little YouTube. So might want to just film the guy giving the tour, but if that's a headache, no worries.
Depends on the extent of the filming.
Okay. But probably just hold up a phone.
Okay.
That's about it. I appreciate it. Oh, check it out while we're waiting.
3:05, I'm going to say they're late, so. Alright, we're starting with the 3 o'clock tour. You can head into that blue room over that way.
This uniform.
Alright, welcome to the Whitehouse of the Confederacy. I'll be your tour guide today. My name is Andy. Today's tour is going to focus on the 4 years the House acts as the White House of the Confederacy, but a few things I'd like to address before we really get started with the name. White House of the Confederacy is a modern-day name put on the building by the museum, but it's not a name that ever would have been used during the Civil War. It's kind of the easiest way to explain what this building is to someone in passing, but to be honest, it does create a few misconceptions. I mean, first things first, you take a good look at the building, you might notice that it's not white. This color is based on historical paint chip analysis we did of the building, but according to Sherman Williams, this is Stingray gray. The other thing about this building is that it was never intended to be a White House. It was originally constructed in 1818 by the Brokenborough family as a private residence in what was formerly one of the nicest neighborhoods in Richmond, which is hard to believe nowadays since the hospital swallowed up everything, but this is where doctors, lawyers, judges meant to live. As a private residence house, there's 4 owners, the last being the Crenshaws. The Crenshaws are the uber wealthy. They buy this home in hopes of turning it into a sort of fun summer city getaway for them. Under the Crenshaws, house goes into had a third floor to the building, which someone will attempt to see, but you can't spot it from this angle. A bathroom with all these modern amenities, which was a sink of running water to feed bathtub, which was exciting enough for them to publish a newspaper article about when it first happened. And then they redecorate, putting in stylish furniture, a lot like what we'll see inside the house today. When the Crenshaws are living here, Virginia sees the Union and Richmond named the new capital of the Confederacy. One who contributes still more, however they can. They offer up their home to Richmond for $43,000, all furniture included, which is a lot less than what the house is actually worth. You see, the Crenshaws are already wealthy in their own right. They're not really concerned about getting a profit on the sale, but they really want, above all else, that they want the Confederate president to live in their home. They get exactly that when Richmond turns around and rents this house to the Confederate government. The Confederacy moves in the date since August 1861. The Davis family lived here for about 4 years before having to evacuate in 1865. From there, it's towards the end of the war. The Confederacy is not doing so well. They know they don't have the manpower to defend Richmond, so that army grabs what they can, burns what they can't, and heads out. Union Army comes in shortly after. They're kind of greeted by the city of Richmond as they need people to help put out the fires the Confederacy set on their way out. And from there, the Union Army looks for a place to settle down. They see this glorious building behind me, find that it's been recently vacated, and how convenient, turn this place into headquarters of reconstruction. Here is a picture of Union officers hanging out in the stairway that should appear a bit familiar. So, this place is headquarters of Reconstruction. Reconstruction is a legal process Virginia has to undergo in order to rejoin the Union. This involves ratifying the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, along with the new Constitution to support these amendments. But as you can imagine, Virginia is not too eager to get that done. They drag their feet up the entire process, and Virginia is not readmitted as a state until 1870. Once that is done, though, the Army is no longer needed, so they leave the house and city behind. But don't be too worried. Within that same year, it's converted to one of the very first public schools in the state of Virginia, and it runs in public school for about 20 years. The kids do more damage than the war ever did. 20 years later, the house is in horrible condition, and Richmond considering just tearing it down and building a new school on the property instead. If they had done this, BC would have bought it a long time ago. Thankfully for us, though, the Confederate Little Memorial Society stepped in and they took possession of the home. They saved it from being condemned. Oh, that's not funny, door up. They saved it from being condemned, they turned it to the Museum of the Confederacy, stuff it full of artifacts they've been collecting since the war ended. And this place runs the Museum of the Confederacy all the way up until 1970. That's where two things occur. First, they build this concrete building next door, that becomes the new Museum of the Confederacy, and then in 1977, the house undergoes what will ultimately be a 12-year renovation where it's restored to its original appearance. After that renovation is done, believe it or not, they opened up to the public for tours. Crazy. What happens to the Museum of the Confederacy, you might notice it's not there anymore, is that merges the American Civil War Center in 2013. The two of them open up a brand new organization and museum called the American Civil War Museum. That is about 1.5 miles down the hill over at Tredegar. All of our artifacts are located down there. There are also people to pay me and run the facilities now. Unfortunately for us, when it came to that move, UPS said that this was too heavy to ship, so how we does stay up here. So, a few rules before we go inside the house today. Almost everything inside the house is either original to the house or to the time period, which means it's really old. Please help us preserve the inside of the house by refraining from touching anything, leaning against the walls, or stepping off the carpet runners. Food and drink are prohibited. If you have a water bottle, just keep it closed and put away. Pictures are welcome, just no flash photography, just good tour guide. And we're going to stay together as a group, so no wandering off or lingering behind. The tour is about 45 minutes to an hour long, but if for any reason anyone needs to leave the tour early, just let me know. I'll help get you out of there. Are there any questions for me before we head out today? All right, so that's all of you.
I think we should go back to the place.
This is the house where Jefferson Davis lived. Oh, it's in Colts. Beautiful columns. Yeah, as you can see, it's an off-white. The Confederate White House is not necessarily white. say it's more of a gray. So we'll take a look inside.
All right, so this is the entrance hall of the house. Presidential security back then was not thought about the way we think about it today, which meant that anyone wanting to talk to the president would guarantee to get at least this far into the home, regardless of who you are or what you wanted. The only real line of security is going to be the butler and whether or not he felt like you had a good enough reason to come in here. And to make matters simpler, this house doesn't have a real established butler. The staff is small, job positions are fluid. It really is a matter of who can conveniently answer the door at that moment. One person who may have answered the door for people was a man by the name of Henry. We have one artifact in our collection that talks about Henry. I have a copy of it with me here. It says pass Henry to apothecary, then President's Mansion. Would anyone like to guess as to why Henry would need this pass to leave and run this errand? He was an enslaved person, so it would have been illegal for him to be out on the street. This pass is what would have allowed him to leave the household and run this job off of. Now, we don't know much about Henry other than this pass. We do know he worked here. We know he didn't belong to the Davises. He instead hired out from a different family, and he probably did not enjoy his time here in the house because in January 1865, during a dinner party, a fire broke out in the basement of the building. It didn't do any damage, but it did create a lot of smoke, a lot of chaos. When the fire had been out and the smoke had been cleared, Henry was nowhere to be found. So recently, that was sort of the end of the story to tell about Henry, but someone doing some completely unrelated research a little under a year ago actually stumbled upon an interview someone had conducted with Henry after the fact. In that interview, he discovered his last name Mosley, and he did make it freedom safely. There's still speculation of Henry being the person to start the fire in the basement. I think so, but we can't say for sure. Evidence and witness are totally or long gone, with the exception of two. There are still two witnesses left around. These are Our Lady's Comedy and Tragedy. Comedy's one holding the theater mask. Tragedy's the one clutching the dagger. They've been here every day since their first installation in 1830. They're an example of the technology you'll see used throughout the house called false surfacing. While they look like they're made of metal, in reality they are plaster, which makes their survival up to this point even more miraculous considering the 20 years that this building was a school. We think this front entrance hall might have been the principal's office, so that probably plays into a very big part as to why they're in such good condition today. Other examples of false surfacing in the room are the walls and floor. While they imply marble and tile, obviously they're not. This is mass-produced machine-printed wallpaper. To our modern-day eyes, this technique may appear cheap or tacky. Back then, this was a cutting-edge technology. I like to compare it to owning 3D printed furniture. Are there any questions for me? All right, if there are no questions, you guys can head that way to the dining room. Got it, our very old example. We're facing them on paper, iPads.
Hello guys, I can't say hello too much because I'm touring a museum, but Francesca, thanks for checking in. Wesley, what's up? Cooking and camping, thanks again for watching.
If anyone wants to take pictures, do it now before I stand in the middle of the room. I am not historically accurate. All right, so this is the formal dining room of the house. We didn't see a lot of use under the Davises. They moved in the middle of the war, so food is scarce, bad news is coming in every day. That's not really dinner party atmosphere. In fact, it probably looks really bad for the president to be hosting parties in the middle of all of that. As a family, the Davises also didn't use this room too often. They moved into 3 small kids who had a reputation of being destructive and disobedient. So glass, china, not really the best combination. They can eat their dinner down in the basement as a family. We know war councils were held in this house. We don't know where exactly. It's not formally. Oops, no, I'm not touching those. I know it's tempting. They're lovely. So we know war councils were held in this house. We don't know where exactly. It's never formally documented, but we assume the amount of people coming in and what they're doing. This is really the only cable house big enough to accommodate everyone. So it probably happens in here. Regardless of what people are doing, servants are going to be needed. This house needs anywhere between 12 and 15 people to run it. About half to 2/3 of those people are going to be enslaved. 3 belong to the Davises, brought from a plantation in Mississippi where they own over 100 people. The rest are going to be hired out, which means rented from other people in the city. One person who operated this room was a man by the name of James Pemberton. He was Jefferson Davis's body servant and occasional table servant. He was here until January 1865, where 2 weeks before Henry made his escape, James Pemberton also escaped the household. He headed east, straight to Union General Frederick the Butler, tells him all of the information that he has been privy to since being here in the house. The information is deemed so important, they send him straight to Washington, D.C. to be interviewed by the Secretary of War himself. Common questions they get asked about the room are, what is original to the house? In general, most of what you see today will be original to the house, but specifically to the room is going to be the table, the light, the sofas along the edges of the room, the marble top tables, and the mirror. Another common question I get asked is, who is that man on the mantle? I'll give people a chance to guess before I say who, but here's a warning, it is not anyone from ancient Greece. It is Stonewall Jackson. He would have died recently when that bust was commissioned and sent here. They used his death mask as a sort of a model. Unfortunately for us, the original is both light and top heavy, had a tendency of jumping off the mantle, so for the safety of that artifact, we roughed that out here. Instead, today he stands in the eternal staring contest with someone guests have a much easier time recognizing. One guest was asked if the look of disapproval is original or gained from years of being hung in the house. With the South Sea George Washington, they see a white, southern, slave-owning man who fought a rebellion against a tyrannical government for the right to run his business how he saw fit. When the South sees George Washington, they see the perfect mascot. What better way to rally people together, justify what you're doing, get them to join the cause, than using the image of the first president of the United States? They say, we're doing the same thing George Washington did. I'm sure you want to be like George Washington. And if George Washington was alive, he'd totally be on our side. Now, we don't know, George Washington died way before he could ever make that choice, but he probably would not have been on the side of the Confederacy. He's a proponent of strong central government and questions the usage of slavery his whole life, to the point that when he died, he issued an order to free his enslaved people. But don't tell the South that it does get in the way of the narrative they're trying to promote. William used his image as the seal of the Confederacy with a picture of George Washington, and Jefferson Davis chooses to be inaugurated on George Washington's birthday. On today's tour, if you were paying close attention, you might spot 3 images of George Washington scattered throughout the house. None of them are original to the house, but they do belong here. We're talking about how the Confederacy chooses to represent themselves. Are there any questions for me?
Did Davis, oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
The only question was, you said table servant and a body servant.
Yes.
What did those 2 roles mean?
So a table servant is going to be the person who stands behind you when you eat dinner. They're there to get water, refill your plates, like bring in new course meals. A body servant is going to be the closest person to you. They're the person who gets you dressed, they wash you, they help you in the middle of the night. And it's like, that is like your person for probably your whole life.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Is Mary Bowser,
She was here once, though we are switching to we're trying to phase out Mary Bowser and Mary Richard, because it's a more accurate name, but she was here in this house once.
what type of what just once?
Just once she posed as a laundry person. And we did actually find evidence of that visit very recently, like just a few months ago. We found a newspaper clipping for an ad looking for a laundry servant. So, very exciting. I'll go into more detail when we get to the room that she actually visited in, but yes, she was here once. Any other questions?
Did Davis have another president that he admired? I always wonder, in all the presidents up until 1860, was there anybody he looked up to? besides
he-
Washington?
He is named after Thomas Jefferson, so,
Oh, sure, of course, yeah, right. Makes sense.
yeah. I mean,
He'd
but
probably be the direct guy.
George Washington's sort of like the standard
Yeah, right.
hero.
Cool.
Any other questions?
So that's the original mirror?
Yes, it is. Yes, I mean, mostly intact. If you pay very close attention, you might see the words "Billy is my boy" carved in the glass. People have always been people.
Wow. Good better. But he can break steak.
Yeah, so we got very lucky when it came to the furniture of the house. You see, between the house being turned into a school and then being turned into a museum, they auctioned off all of the stuff in the house, which actually was kind of helpful because everything got sold at the same time, same place, by the same people who took general records of what was bought and sold, and majority of the buyers were locals of Richmond. So then 20 years later, when they send out a notice being like, hey, did you buy furniture from this place 20 years ago? Would you consider giving it back to us? A lot of that furniture had not left city limits, and some people still had receipts from the auction. So we got about 70% of the original furniture.
Well, not bad.
When was the furniture asked to be returned? That would have been like 1890, would have been like when that initial fall was sent out. It's not haunted. It's not haunted. I wish it was haunted. No one loves the ghosts more than the tour guides, but no ghosts. Any other questions?
I don't know if you ever start offering night tours.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool. John Marshall does like the ghost tours. I really wish we could get in on that. We don't, like, no one's lived here long enough to haunt the place.
We
so.
can make a deal with you,
Yeah, we could just say.
Like, and then we can actually get something cool going on. Sometimes that wouldn't be too bad, but I'm not having good things to offer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Millie's my boy. Cool.
So this is the parlor room of the house. It's also the room of one error and two tricks. So the parlor room is basically the living room of the house. This is where you hold your social events, entertain your friends, where the family spends their downtime. Those doors lead out to the entrance hall when we first started this tour. These windows lead out to that big back porch. During huge events, you'd open up both and create a corridor to usher people through the house into the Davises. Jefferson and Brigham would stand here and shake hands with people as they passed through. Because so many people came through this room and they wrote about what they saw, we can confidently say this is the most historically accurate room in the house. We have testimonies on the color and pattern of the wallpaper, and in the 1970s, we discovered scraps of the original wallpaper lodged inside the pocket doors. We were able to chemically analyze them, figure out the material they're made of. Excuse me. We discovered it's made of a floss material, which means that it has a bit of velvet mixed into it to sort of give it that shimmering pattern, if you want to pass that around. One major historical inaccuracy with this room, though, is going to be the lack of large gilded mirror on top of the fireplace. If it was here, it would have matched its twin on the other side of the room. Together, they would have created an optical illusion that made this room appear bigger and brighter. The mirror is unfortunately one of those pieces that did not come back to us after the auction, so if anyone in here is a fan of garage sales or thrifting, keep an eye out for us. We're still looking for it. Looks like that one over there.
Does it not look exactly the same as the other ones?
Not exactly the same. So it's that, but what is exactly the same? That one. So, symmetry is so important, in fact, thank you very much, that if you take a good look at this door, it's totally normal door, we just walked through it. That door is fake, only installed for the sake of symmetry.
Oh.
The other thing I like to point out are the edges of the wallpaper. While it looks like there's molding in this room, it's actually another example of wall surfacing, just flat wallpaper. Excuse me. Are there any questions for me? So I often get asked about the wallpaper as to, like, why is it fake? Like, could they not have afforded real molding? And the answer is no. Real molding would have been simple and cheap for the Crenshaws, who were one of the wealthiest families in the world at that time. To them, this was much more impressive. This was cooler for them. And I think most people probably have that same reaction today. I think if I did just said it was real bowling, we would just moved on. But when I say it's fake, everyone's excited.
The Crenshaws, how did they make their wealth?
Long story short, they do a lot of things, but their big business is wheat. So like they own plantations that grow wheat, they own the windmills to grind that wheat into flour. They own a fleet of ships dedicated to getting that wheat into international trading ports across the planet. So their wheat is like world renowned. We find records of people specifically asking for the Richmond Crenshaw brand wheat all the way on the other side of the planet. So basically. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Right. Whenever you guys are ready, you can head to the other half of the room.
This was their secondary home. What was that first?
So this is like the home rented out to them by the Confederate government for them to stay while they like live
Yeah.
at the Capitol, but the Davises are from Biloxi.
The original.
Oh, the Crenshaws, they got houses all over.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, around the world. Oh, yeah, Verena.
It's not the line.
Not Verena. I'm guessing you guys are from Yeah, so Verena is actually from a tobacco plantation that is called Verena. Verena, different person, same spelling,
Yeah.
but named after different things.
Did Davis have a daughter named Verena?
He did have a, she died early, didn't she? She died early, she died in her late 20s, she called Verena. But I mean, her technically her name is Verena Jr.
The wife was Verena.
His wife is-
Daughter after his wife.
Yes, she named her daughter after herself, but yeah, Verena Jr., but she's called Rainey.
That's not what Mariah's named after.
No, Verena's named after the plantation.
Which has nothing to do with it.
There's nothing to do with Verena. I also had to like unlearn that when I started.
Just assume.
Okay, so this, as I said before, is the social center of the House. Jefferson Davis is first. Jefferson Davis, as president of the Confederacy, is expected to both administer the government, but also hold social functions and keep up morale. Problem with that, Jefferson Davis, not a social dude. He's reclusive. He's aloof. He does not like talking to people. He instead relegates that part of his job to his wife, Verena, instead. Verena at the time had been a very educated woman. She'd been tutored by a judge growing up and had spent some time in finishing school. She's vivacious. She's outgoing. Does have a temper. She's what's described as a woman of warm heart but impetuous tongue, which meant that if she didn't like you, she made sure it was known that she did not like you. She also had a habit of imitating people, which guests of the house were not fond of. But at the end of the day, she's still a woman of high social standing. So she's overseeing everything that's happening in the house, but she's not actually the one doing the upkeep. That instead falls to a woman by the name of Mary Amelia. Mary Amelia was an Irish immigrant that had the misfortune of vacationing in Richmond when the war breaks out. She can't get home to her family in Baltimore, Maryland. She's told her best that if she wants to go home, is to come here, seek out Verena Davis, and ask for a pass across the border. Throughout the course of that conversation, Verena offers her a job here as housekeeper. She's got to think about that job offer, taking it may mean not seeing her family for however long the war may last, but ultimately she accepts. She stays here as housekeeper even after the Davises leave Richmond. It said that when Verena Davis was preparing to go, she told Mary Amelia that she could have whatever she wanted from the house before the soldiers arrived. And she decided to take this tea set right here. It was passed out to her family before being returned to the museum by her grandchildren. Are there any questions for me?
It's just original.
So the piano is not original. It is the same make and model of the piano that was in the house, but this is actually from North Carolina. The stool's original, but no one ever asked me about that one.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to pass from state lines and stuff like that?
So the border between the Union and the Confederate is going to be right above Virginia, with Maryland being a border state for the Union.
Were there customs and everything and all that jazz?
I believe there are customs because there's a lock. You're not trying to pass supplies from one side to the other. They're trying to start.
Right.
So, right. People couldn't get home.
Uh-huh.
She was given. There was paperwork put out for her to cross the border to the north, but she doesn't take it ultimately. She accepts this job here. But yeah, you could get a special pass. And Mary was calling a very special, like, favor to try to get home. Any other questions? Alright, so, the next room is too small for all of us to fit, so I'll have to tell you about that. Here's the next room. I refer to as the private sitting room. So, this house at the Whitehouse of the Confederacy is a major social center. There's no place in this house where you are by yourself, with the exception of this next room. Why? Well, it's small, it's isolated, there's only 2 entrances, both very easy to close. So as a result, this room is going to see a variety of uses. It's going to be the library, the private meeting space, the classroom for the Davis children as they get tutored. 2 really interesting figures in history actually spent some time in that room. The first, we already talked about, is Mary Bowser, or better known, as we're trying to phase out that name, Mary Richards. So Mary Richards was an African-American woman who would pose as an enslaved person to sneak into Confederate buildings unnoticed. They said that she had a remarkable memory and the ability to read and write. She would use those skills to collect as much Confederate data as possible to turn over to the Union Army. She spent most of her time at the Confederate government buildings at the Virginia Capitol, but she does come to this house once. They said that she posed as a laundry person, was told to wait in this next room, and while being left alone, rifled through, analyzing as many Confederate documents as she could. The other really interesting person in history was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was in this home 36 hours after Jefferson Davis has to evacuate the city of Richmond.
Wow.
He comes in on April 5th, 1865, which is actually his son Pat's 12th birthday, which is why his son is with him on this trip up to Richmond, back to Washington, D.C. He said that for the meeting, he's been tired, quiet, simply asked for a glass of water. He spent a lot of the meeting looking out the window, being lost in thought, and really, who could blame him? It had been 4 years, the worst war the United States has ever been involved in. One of his sons died over the course of his last 4 years, and he, just a few days prior, would have had his own dream about his own impending death. And this room was one of the last places he was in since he died 10 days after leaving his home.
How long back then was it from DC to here?
That's a good
It
question.
was a couple days ride. I'm sure he gets and it would have been faster had there been train lines, but one of the poor tactics was destroying those on the way up. So
Yeah.
it would have been a couple days ride. He does make a few pit stops on that trip back up there, but he's gonna get priority as president. But yeah, it was pretty far.
Yeah. Wow.
Any other questions?
Who's the boss of the client?
That is Jefferson Davis. It is the only image of him you'll see inside the house today. You see, it's considered rude to have pictures of yourself within your home at that time. We know this bust belongs to the family. We know it was in the house while they lived here. We don't know where in the house it was displayed. Most likely not the parlor in this fashion. That would have been way too much. Probably would have been like somewhere more private, like the basement.
Probably always have the beard under the sheet.
Yes, that was the fashion. The Billy Goat beard was very fashion. I think it looks awful. But who's to say? I guess Reno liked it. Any other questions? Alright, so this is what's gonna happen. I will release you guys into this next room. As you pass through, you'll see a spiral staircase to your right. Go up that staircase and wait in the room with the wood panel wallpaper. Take your time. The staircase is an odd shape, and feel free to use a handrail. It is original to the house, and the only artifact you'll be allowed to touch today. Are we excited?
What do you need it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Washington?
I gotta go last. Alright, make sure everybody's just chilling here.
It is an odd shape.
So, I got a question about the stairwell and why it's so low. So, when this house was first constructed, it has a very basic staircase that just kind of goes up. When the Crenshaws take over the house, they're like, no, this has to be like the best house. You can see the stairwell from the front door, and you can't have anything that's not showy anywhere people might see. So, he insists on being it turned into a spiral staircase as part of that big renovation. Now, I'm sure some engineer at the time was like, we don't have room for a spiral staircase. I think he said, build it anyways. So now it's a little bit of an odd oval shape, and the stairwell's kind of low, and the treads are uneven. And so that's a product of do it the way that I want you to do it, and not what is actually practical. So, this is the second floor of the house. From here on out, you'll notice a pretty stark difference in the way it's decorated. The first floor is for guests. You need to show off your wealth, your resources, your good taste. The second floor is really just for the family, so you don't need all that glitz and gold. This staircase leads to the third floor of the house. We won't be going up there, to be honest, there really isn't much to see. When the Crenshaws first build the third floor, it is extra bedrooms for their 10 kids. The Davises live here, it's extra bedrooms for anyone staying overnight. When it's a school, they tear off the walls and turn it into one big classroom. And now as a museum, it's storage. Are there any questions for me? This is ventilation. I often get asked if this is a dumbwaiter, but the house is too old for one of those. I felt it. Been here. This yeah, so the house is 1818, right? So
Wow.
also, you have to remember the context. This house was built before AC. So, a big part of the architecture of this building is based on temperature control and airflow. How can we make sure there's always circulation going on? So they're very intentional about the doors, the windows, all very strategically placed, vents, a cupola, high ceilings to help make sure hot air can rise. So this could bring air from the first floor to the second floor, and either out the window if it's been opened, or up to the third floor and out the window.
Wow.
Any questions? Any other questions for me?
Real like that.
These are bedrooms. What a great question. I can show you that, unless there are any more about the second floor in general.
What's the slot in the ceiling?
Modern day AC.
Thank you.
Is it common to have wooden panel at this time?
Okay, okay, the wood panel wallpaper. Okay. Yeah, I do have a rant about the wood panel. Okay, so this is silk printed wood grain wallpaper. It is an example of wall surfacing. It looks like wood, it's actually painted paper, which I guess is still wood, but you know what I mean. So when it comes to like the wallpapers and carpets of the house, there's always like a certain level of guesswork. There's no pictures taken of the inside of the house, so we take what we know based on testimony, catalogs of available wallpaper, what makes aesthetic sense, what's common for other houses at the time, and sort of make the best educated guess. With the exception of two, there are two wallpapers that we are as confident as we'll ever confidently be, like this is exactly or as close to exact as will ever exist. One is the product because we have scraps in testimony. The next is this, the wallpaper, it was still printed wood grain wallpaper because we have testimony and testimony of people who saw this wallpaper and documented the silk printed wood grain wallpaper. I don't know why of all carpets and wallpapers that exist in the house, they had to document the silk printed wood grain wallpaper, but boy howdy, they really liked the silk printed wood grain wallpaper, and they did write a lot about how much they really liked the silk printed wallpaper, and it was very popular and fashionable at the time to have silk printed wood grain wallpaper, and they did, for sure, we know that. So here it is in all of its glory. It's a wallpaper, and when you go home, your homework tonight is to also document the silk printed wood grain wallpaper, and then we can keep the cycle going for the next person who has my job. Any other questions? All right, I'll let you guys into the next room.
Miss Jeff Davis lives here.
So, this is the master bedroom of the house. Common courtesy back then had this expectation that Jefferson and Verena each had like their own rooms, but for reasons I'll get to later, Verena gets kicked out of her room and brought here with Davis instead. Now, two of them are an interesting couple, to say the least. First thing to note, there is an 18-year age gap between the two of them. When they first get married, Verena was 18, Jefferson Davis is 36. Verena is also Jefferson Davis' second wife. He was originally married to a girl by the name of Sarah Knox Taylor, Noxie. She is the daughter of his military commander at the time, Zachary Taylor, better known today as President Zachary Taylor, that president that celebrated the 4th of July a little bit too hard and then maybe died of a milk and cherry overdose. But before that could happen to him, he was alive and well and very much did not approve of the match. He did not want Davis in, he did not want his daughter marrying a military man. So Jefferson, so serious about this, retires from the military. He has his brother buy him a large plot of land in Mississippi and start a plantation, and so decided the new start of his life, he leaves to that plot of land as soon as possible. Now, Noxie, worried about the move, he'd be moving in the middle of malaria season, but Davis assures her it will be fine. He is wrong. The two of them get sick, and Sarah dies just 3 months after she is married. Struck with grief and guilt over the whole situation, Jefferson Davis becomes a social recluse. Takes 10 years for his brother to eventually drag him out into the world and for him to meet Verena and for the two of them to get married. Now, they marry out of love, but it is not a match made in heaven. They are two very stubborn people, and Verena always felt like Davis compared her to his first wife, and to be honest, she's probably not wrong considering that on their honeymoon, he took her to go see Noxie's grave.
Oh, what?
Romantic, right. Look, there's
Lord.
the first one. Yeah. Somehow they pull through. Their marriage can be marked in constant fights. One of the really big fights came as a result of the Mexican-American War. Davis at the time was serving as a representative of Mississippi over in Washington, D.C. when he sees this war burning out west. And he really wants to go fight it. And Verena really wants to stay put. And he basically pinky promises her, saying that he won't go, and then he leaves anyway. The resulting fight when he gets back is so bad that when he returns to Washington, D.C., Verena does not go with him. She stays with her family in Mississippi. Their letters at the time just continue that fight. One letter he wrote to her saying that you can join me in Washington, D.C. and you learn to be an obedient and subservient wife. You can imagine how well that letter went over with Verena, who so mysteriously did not go rushing off to pack her bags and join him. By the time the war comes around, though, they have made up. They're a loving couple as far as we can tell. They have 2 more kids who live in here. Their names are William and Verena Jr., that are known as Billy and Winnie. Over here, you'll see Verena's sitting room. Inside, you notice a writing desk and sewing machine. The writing desk is there because, well, Davis is not the healthiest person on the planet. He is partially blind in his left eye, has facial paralysis, constant migraines, he gets an ear infection every month. He's constantly sick with cold or fever. He can't eat if he's too excited, or he will be in pain for the next several days. Most people who met him at this time thought that he was going to die soon. Verena often has to write in his stead. We have a quote from her saying that, well, I see hundreds of my husband's signatures sold every day. Most of them are mine. Are there any questions? Yeah.
How did Davis become president?
What a great question.
No,
Yeah, because he's like that.
Yeah.
I go into really in-depth detail in the very next room, so unless there are any other questions? Alright. So the house, yes I do. So the house goes through some changes throughout the year to reflect like the seasons and living conditions, and in the summer, the beds in the house get mosquito netting. The house is built for window screens. So they don't know mosquitoes cause malaria, but they do know mosquitoes cause mosquito bites, and that's enough for anyone to buy the best netting money can afford. Why these windows? Because the panels they fold into them, so. Or so like convenient window screens. So, This is Jefferson Davis's home office. His real office is located 4 blocks down at the Virginia Capitol, but as I said before, he is not the most sturdy human being ever built. Some days he just cannot make that journey. He instead takes one of the spare bedrooms of the house, Verena's room, converts that into an office. This works out pretty great for Jefferson Davis. He doesn't have a whole lot of need for bedrooms because on top of his other health conditions, he's also a chronic insomniac. So who was he? How does he even become president? Well, Jefferson Davis starts off his career as a West Point graduate. From there, he spends some time in the military, retires, and becomes a representative of Mississippi. After that, he goes off to fight in the Mexican-American War, getting some shrapnel stuck in his heel, becoming a certified war hero, and the original senator of Mississippi dies in combat. So, when he returns to Washington, D.C., they ask if he'd like to complete the term of that senator, to which he agrees. After that, he's then invited to the cabinet of President Pierce to serve as Secretary of War, and then from there returns to being a senator of Mississippi, and that's when Mississippi secedes the Union. Fun fact, Jefferson Davis never completes any term of office he's ever elected into. So,
Wow.
I mean, not even quitter, like something always happens to him. So, he goes home to await the fallout of secession. And they've arranged a committee to decide what the Confederacy is going to look like, who's going to serve, and Davis is invited to that committee. But he's so self-assured that he's going to get the military position that he's always wanted, commander, that he doesn't bother going. So he gets a letter saying, "Congratulations, you've been unanimously voted to be the first president of the Confederacy." He's disappointed. That's not the job he wanted, but it's not the job anyone wanted, which is why he gave it to the one guy who did not show up to the meeting. He hesitantly accepts the appointment. As president, he's a mixed bag. On one hand, he does keep the Confederacy together for 4 years, which some scholars argue he might be the only person on the planet who could have done that. On the other hand, he is reclusive, he's aloof, a workaholic, an insomniac, a chronic micromanager, and he gets lost in the minutia of every single decision he's asked to make. His the executive branch of the Confederacy very quickly becomes a revolving door of people who just cannot tolerate being with him anymore. The most common question I get asked about this room is, what's the green cord hanging behind me? This is called an extension cord. House ran on coal gas when the Davises lived here, which meant that gas was pumped through the house to these light fixtures.
It's a real extension cord from that era. Or
I
at least a
don't-
replica of it. I didn't even know they had extension cords
They
back
did have
then.
an extension cord. So the house ran on coal gas. Gas would have been pumped throughout the house from these light fixtures, which meant every single one of these light bulbs should be its own individual flame. Who would here would have liked to work in an office with a 6 stovetop oven running in it at all hours of the day and no AC?
Depends on the season.
You know, that would be nice in the winter,
Yeah.
but in the summer,
No,
unbearable.
absolutely not.
So if you didn't want to live like that, you could hook up an extension cord, bring down the gas to where you actually needed it, and then you'd only have to need 1 light instead of 6.
How dangerous was that?
I mean, how dangerous is your gas stove?
Depends on who you ask.
Right, like if you were smart about it,
Yeah.
and this might be slightly safer than a gas stove since it's out of the reach of children. The other thing I like to point out are the stops at the bottom of the gas meter where the control how much gas came out.
Oh, okay. Oh. Wait, well, that's enough. These things?
Yes.
How did this make it through being school?
I don't think they ran the point gas.
No, they weren't.
Standard back
Yeah.
then.
Hey, Mom.
It was like cellophane and, yeah, so, they probably didn't run these, they probably only had school when it was like right outside.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Any other questions?
Why did nobody want the job of president?
So the Confederacy does not like central government. They don't like a big government telling what the states would do. So while there's like a president, he's not like the president that we think of. He's not really his paperwork guy. So, and plus everyone wants the glory of being on the battlefield. There's no glory in being president.
Was there ever a Confederate election or no?
There was. So when Davis is first like picked as president, it is like a formal choosing
Right.
at this committee. It's like a temporary thing. But then later there
5
is
years.
like there is a formal election,
Huh.
but no one runs against him. It was considered unpatriotic to run against the current president in a war.
Interesting.
So
So
there
it's formal. It's like
formal-
Russia or something.
Yeah,
similar
I mean,
election
If
style.
it was not a war, there probably would have been more people running, but
Right.
no one wants to be president of a country with no strong central government during a civil war, so.
Is there a
Fascinating.
term that they gave him?
Yeah.
Yes, he would have been
Question.
president for 6 years.
6 years. Same in Mexico, they're presidents for 6 years.
Right, he doesn't make it to 6 years, obviously.
No.
But theoretically, his term was good to last 6 years.
Do you have a vice president? Do you have a vice? There was a vice,
president.
huh?
Alexander Stevens was vice president. They
Stevens, I love that
famously
name.
hated each other. Yes.
That's kind of cool.
Very bad.
Odd couple.
Why do they hate each other?
Jefferson Davis is a dude who is like, Jefferson Davis has to be the smartest person in the world. Like,
yeah.
he does not accept input from other people. He's not quick to make a decision. He's not a friendly person.
Okay.
Alexander Stevens, very much the same.
Mm.
So.
Battle of the egos.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Did the Confederacy, did they create their own constitution?
They did create their own constitution. It is a copy-paste of the United States Constitution with two notable details. One is slavery will last forever, always, and also no one is allowed to secede.
Oh.
And at the moment there was going to be another disagreement, everyone was just gonna leave again.
I'm
So it's what I
out. I'm out.
This is the last disagreement ever.
Well,
Yeah.
Republic of Texas, you know, it's not that far-fetched, you know.
Yeah, so that is those are the two big changes to the Constitution.
Okay.
So yeah, the idea is, okay, like, we already found out that you can secede and win, theoretically, so if this is going to be a real government, the moment they have like a major disagreement, the states will probably try to leave again and form their own country. You can't have that happen, so you're locked in, like, you
Wow.
can't jump ship again.
The irony.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alright,
Yeah.
I'll let you guys to the next room. So the next room, I like to, introduce by saying, so Jefferson Davis is a workaholic and an insomniac and a recluse. Some days he's in his office for as many as 20 hours uninterrupted. The only people on this planet that can, like, motivate him to leave and take a break are his children.
Oh, look at this.
Stuff everywhere. Oh.
Sounds like the worst bus ever.
Yeah. So bright.
Right?
Sorry.
I would never leave.
Yeah. So, as you may have guessed based on the furniture and the decoration, this is obviously the kitchen of the house. So, the Davises moved into 3 kids. They have 2 more while living here.
Thank you,
Their
Maya.
names are Matt, Jefferson, Joseph, William, and Winnie. They are the children of the most affluential parents in Richmond, Virginia, and their parents are way too busy to really be their parents. Jefferson Davis is also a huge fan of the child rearing style called letting kids do whatever they want all the time, always. Marina's the one that had this wacky idea called routine and discipline, but she's just a woman. What does she know about raising kids? Which is to say that these children were animals. They are the kind of kids who break the legs off their toys, interrupt really important meetings for kisses goodnight. People visiting the house with the sounds of running and screaming and crying were constant. On the bed here, we have a piece of original handwork, reminiscent of that from his son Jefferson Jr. He and his little brother Joseph run around in these matching costumes in a neighborhood boy gang called the Shotgun Little Cats. Shotgun Little Cats' sole purpose in life was to head down the hill and engage in territorial rock-throwing battles with the Butcher Cats, their rivals. These battles were so bad, sometimes the police had to be called to break them up. So, if you've ever seen Little Rascals, it's like a lot of shenanigans like that, but with a catapult that could fling bricks all the way up the hill and then rain down at the houses of this neighborhood. I read one testimony of these 2 gangs getting into a fight during which someone lit something that was referred to as a torpedo, but probably like a firecracker, but more dangerous, and it flew off into someone's window into their living room, hitting their fireplace, igniting a canister of gunpowder, and effectively blowing up the side of this person's house Christmas Day. Jefferson Davis himself tried to set aside a day in his schedule to make peace with these 2 gangs, during which the leader of the Butcher Cats told him that, while we respect you, Mr. President, we are never going to get along with your kids, which is essentially a 9-year-old telling the leader of his country that we are going to continue throwing rocks at your kids every day, and you can't do anything to stop us. The woman in charge of these children was named Catherine. We don't know much about her other than that she was Irish, probably slept in here to keep an eye on them, and her job was probably very hard. But you might be saying, you said there are 5 kids in the house, and that's Catherine's bed. That does not leave enough sleeping spots for everyone else. And in fact, in this picture I'm showing you, there's only 4 kids in this picture. What gives? Well, it is the 1860s, which means that these children are not going to have a very good track record of life. Most of these kids are going to die before they turn 30, and one of them even dies on the property. One day, Jefferson Davis's 2 sons, Jefferson Jr. and Joseph, were playing by themselves on the porch, and somehow, some way, there's no adults around to tell us exactly what happened, but somehow, some way, Joseph fell off of the porch. He had recently turned 5, and the porch at the time was a 15-foot drop. He struck his head on the way down, and most 5-year-olds are not going to survive that. Jefferson and Verena were not home when the accident occurred. They're both at the Capitol. They hear about what's happened. They rush back here as soon as possible, but what really can be done at that point? They hold him until he falls asleep. He does not wake up. As I said before, the Davis kids don't have very good track records of life. Their first child, Samuel, dies when he is 2 of typhoid. After that is going to be Maggie Davis. She's the child right here. We will get back to her. This is Jefferson Jr. He dies in his late 20s, I think 28, of yellow fever. From here is going to be William. William dies when he is 10 of diphtheria. And then this is their youngest, Winnie. Winnie Davis, or Verena Jr., dies when she is 28 of malarial gastritis, which we have been told by doctors is not a real illness that a person can contract, let alone die from, but regardless of what she actually had, she does not survive. Compared to their children, Jefferson and Verena lived really long lives. They both make it to their 80s. Immediately after the war, Jefferson Davis is held in Fort Monroe. He's indicted on treason, but treason formally means you've assisted another country against the United States. The United States then recognized confederacies in other countries, so he gets stuck in legal limbo. They're not entirely sure what to do with him until some wealthy northerners pay his bonds and he's let go and told not to come back. He spends the rest of his life reveling in the glory that is being the first president of the Confederacy. He writes a book on the subject, he gives speeches, he meets with veterans, he lives off the wealth and generosity of his followers. He dies never apologetic for anything that he did and never reclaiming his American citizenship, so the process to do so was fairly easy. After his death, he dies a citizen to nowhere until Jimmy Carter, who gives the citizen back to him post-mortem. He probably would have been a little bit upset to find out that had happened. After his death, Verena spends the rest of her life in Manhattan. She writes her memoir, turns in newspaper articles, makes a living as a tailor, and even becomes friends with a woman by the name of Julia Grant, wife of Ulysses S. Grant. Wow. Friendship that she said would not have been possible if either of their husbands had still been around at that point. When she passes away, she's survived by her oldest daughter, Maggie. She's the only one of the Davis kids who lived long enough to be married and have kids of her own. Her descendants still exist on the west side of the country. She outlives Verena by about 3 years, and then when she passes away, the whole family is once again reunited in Hollywood Cemetery, Richmond, Virginia. It's about 10 minutes away from here. So this is the last stop before today. So if you have any questions about the house the Davises, I'd recommend now. Yeah.
So the body servant, I know you said that the kids would have someone sleeping here with them. In the last bedroom we were in, would somebody also sleep with the adults or
So,
be around?
maybe. It's hard to say where the servants went at night because there's no documentation for it, so I can only really tell you what was common back then. So for the half or 1/3 of students, servants that are free, they probably go home at night. For the servants that are hired out, so they're rented from other people, they probably go to their original masters at night. As for the 3 people the Davises do, one is the stable person. He's probably going to stay in the stables at night. And then the 2 body servants, which is James Pemberton and his wife, Betty Pemberton. What was common back then is they probably slept on the floor, either in the room or outside of the room at night to be as close to them as possible in case anything was needed at night. But it's also possible they may have had a room on the 3rd floor, but we don't know, and I can't say for certain. As for babies, so Betty Pemberton is mostly the woman in charge of like the maintenance and upkeep of these children. But she flees with James Pemberton. So the testimony that we have about why they fled, it goes as follows. So supposedly at some point in the middle of the night, Verena calls Betty Pemberton in, demanding for her to fetch a container. So she brings the container to the Davises, and then she demands that the container be opened. and Betty, for whatever reason, cannot get the container opened. And what happens next, supposedly, is that Jefferson Davis, in anger, strangles her. And that this act of violence is what leads James and Betty to flee Richmond. Take this with a grain of salt. This is the only act of violence that the only account of violence we've ever had with an enslaved person. And they are saying this to the Union Army as they're sort of making the pitch as to why they deserve to stay and be liberated. What happens next gets a little bit even more nuanced. So when Betty leaves, she's replaced by a woman by the name of Ellen Barnes. Ellen Barnes is a mixed race African American woman and half white woman. She stays here with the Davises as a child keeper. Even when the Davises leave Richmond, Ellen goes with them, follows them all the way down to Fort Monroe. And then eventually Ellen is reunited with her husband and they move up north. Her husband later dies. And then when she remarries, she invites Verena Davis and Mary Amelia to the wedding. And then in later newspaper interviews, she said glowing reviews of the Davises and the kindness that she experienced in the house, to the point that the reporter supposedly said that her eyes sparkled with affection. Though also note that the reporter asked if she would ever be willing to return to slavery with the Davises, to which she said, no, it's not worth all of that. Any questions? It's an extremely nuanced subject. I can't tell you for certain what the experiences of these people are like. Yes.
You said that wealthy Northerners paid for
Yes.
Davis's bond. And when he was in jail. Why? Do you know why it was?
I read who they were at some point, and one of them was very notable, but I cannot remember their names. I'd be happy to look it up for you when you get back to the gift shop. But as for why, I believe the reason why was because they were ready for the war to be over. And the war would not be over until, everyone is tried and can move on. And they didn't want to try Jefferson Davis because they couldn't figure out whether or not it was worth acknowledging the Confederacy as a separate country.
Yeah.
Of course, if they'd done this, things nowadays would have been a little bit easier, because the topic of what is treason has cropped up over and over again. Every single time we kind of just pass it along because we're okay, is it worth executing this person? No, okay, let him go. So that's kind of where we're at now with the current treason trial. Any other questions?
He must not have had much wealth if Verena was working as a tailor.
No, okay, so in terms of wealth, the Davises. So a lot of their money comes from the enslaved people that they own. They do have a plantation in Mississippi, kind of. Jefferson Davis has his brother buy the plantation in Mississippi, and Davis then gives his brother money in exchange, to be okay, I bought the plantation from you. His brother doesn't file paperwork saying that an official sale has gone on. So technically, legally, Davis is just giving him money. So then, after the end of the war, Davis finds out that he doesn't own the plantation, and then to make matters worse, so the way the plantation works is a plot of land. It's right on the Mississippi River, and the Mississippi River would literally just circle around the plantation. It was called Davis Bend. Throughout the course of the war, the river began to cut through the plantation, which turned the plantation into a land of swamp that's unfarmable. So in the land that he kind of doesn't own, he's lost value in that. And then to make matters worse, all of the enslaved people that he had property value tied into are also not his anymore. So then he's lost virtually all of his wealth throughout the course of the Civil War. So he really just kind of, he lives off the generosity of his followers, who kind of just give him houses and money and places to stay until eventually he dies. Any other questions?
We're not going to the basement.
We are not going to the basement. So there is not really anything to see. When the house was first constructed, the basement was ground level, which meant that humidity that would come up in the ground would be absorbed into the brick walls, but then evaporated out into the world. Now the street level has risen, which means the basement is no longer ground level. So humidity coming up from the ground stays there. And we had an issue called rising damp. Now that issue has been solved, but for the moment being, we do not feel confident keeping any artifacts down there. The idea is maybe in the future we will move our gift shop and ticket sales into the basement. And for the moment being, it's just empty.
Is that where the kitchen would have been then?
The kitchen would have been its own separate facilities, somewhere in that direction. We did this in southern homes to keep temperatures down, get rid of food smells, lower that risk of fire, possibly provide housing for enslaved people if they needed it, but we don't think that happened in this house.
So dinner time was a whole.
Dinner time was the whole thing, you cooked it out there and then you brought it in.
Oh my god.
Not that the Davises have to work about, not that the Davises have to worry about that, but
Wow.
So it's stable separately.
stable is separate, kitchen is separate. Bigger facilities probably would have had like laundry and pantry and all of that. We don't think that happened in this house, we just know stable, kitchen, and gardens. All that exists now is the house.
You know, I'm wondering, would they go out to eat back then? With a bunch of taverns around here, you're right downtown, you could walk and,
There were
I know there's a normal
restaurants in
thing.
Richmond.
Right, yeah.
Davises probably went out to eat at some point, but you have to remember like the inflation at this time.
Interesting.
Like food is scarce,
Huh.
inflation is out the roof. The Davises don't have a lot of money. In fact, you
Right.
they need to like auction stuff off and receive donations from other people for food in this house.
And would that like
Thanks for
politically not
watching.
be a good look to like see them out?
Probably would,
caravanning?
yeah.
Interesting, would it seem to elitist, interesting.
Having food, but you're eating.
In the garden, we grow green peas, like sweet peas and stuff like that. That's food that we knew that they grew in the back of their yard. But also, that was only really an act of solidarity. We actually donated most of the house, most of the food that they grew in the backyard to people for political reasons, like to increase the goodwill.
Image, interesting, even back then, people are watching.
So, two situations to this. This house where the Davises live here do have a running water bathroom.
Okay.
They have a toilet, have a shower. On a good day, it's an early city water system, which means it's not consistent. On a bad day, you got the chamber pot right there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, look at
Which is
that.
unfortunate because if you guys are from Richmond, you'll know that it doesn't rain consistently here, so, and there's no sewer system either, so it is just the street and whatever might be on the street.
Is the chamber probably?
I don't know if the chamber pot is original, I don't know. Might be, I don't know. This room probably has the least amount of original artifacts just because the Davis kids do not take care of their stuff.
You mentioned inflation. Did the Confederacy print their own currency?
They did print their own currency. They probably print too much of their own currency. And also just like due to the food shortages, like
Yeah.
bread from the start of the war is close to 60 cents, and then towards the end of the war is close to, I believe it's like $40.
Like what Confederate dollar?
Confederate, I mean, we tried to adjust it to today's money.
Okay.
We like, there is a barrel of flour that we keep, we have like a display box in the museum, we have a flour barrel, like yay big, would have cost about $100 towards the end of the war. But people were starving. People were starving. They were bread lines.
Wow.
Yeah, like people were not fans. Because what happens is there's a blockade. And then the Confederacy ruined their own economy trying to like play chicken with foreign countries because they were, yeah, what does the Confederacy have to offer globally? Cotton. That's it. That's all they really have, cotton. And most of their money comes from selling that cotton, specifically to Great Britain, who was in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. So they say, we won't sell you cotton until you acknowledge us as a foreign country. Which Britain doesn't want to do because if we acknowledge you as a foreign country and you lose, we pissed off the United States. So they're kind of just like, they're not saying anything.
We are buying the textile.
Right, because they need that money, they need that cotton for their textile industry. So they're kind of just like waiting out. And then the South decides to like start burning like piles of cotton on the docks to be like, this is how serious we are about not selling it to you until you acknowledge us. And instead of giving in, which they almost do, Britain looks into their own empire, which they own vast amounts of land, and they ask, before we risk something, can we grow cotton in our own land? And the answer is yes. You can grow cotton in Egypt and India, which is now why there's such a big Egyptian
British Empire.
cotton industry.
Huh.
Because of the war.
Wow, Britain took India because of the Civil War.
The economy never recovers after
Huh.
the Civil War because Britain finds out that you can find cotton cheaper elsewhere. It's not as good as the South cotton, and it's not as cheap as the South cotton. But once you find out that you can make it yourself, you don't want to go back.
Did they ever do like commerce with tobacco or sugar?
That's a good question.
Not on a lesser scale, but even then, no one wants to risk buying in the South during the war. Because what happens is Britain's really like the global power at the time. And every other country in the world is looking to see what Britain's going to do. And since Britain doesn't do anything, it's not worth getting on anyone's bad side.
Did any countries support the Confederacy? Like,
What about like Mexico, just down south? Do they have any role?
Mexico has no real role in this. They had just lost the Mexican-American War.
Right.
So
20 years
the big
before,
war, the big goal is like the future. So the Confederacy has this like grand plan, like what they're gonna do after they win, and the plan is just to keep moving south and taking more land, support the institution of slavery, and the next target was Mexico, which I think is a bit ambitious to just think that they would just take Mexico, but that was the plan.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how.
So Mexico could have been in the Confederate States.
Mexico.
That was a distant dream.
Have, like, a great plan there. I think they could have beaten the Confederacy fresh out of the Civil War.
So they made it. There might have been a subsequent war. They're like, all right, we got to push, and then they fight the Spanish Empire.
It's also not a good government. So
Right.
I think realistically, if somehow they pull a miracle and they win the war, I think the Confederacy
Right.
most likely would have just collapsed.
Oh, where are all their troops? They're all dead, so.
Yeah, like everyone has died, the economy is gone, this government is not well functioning, probably would have collapsed immediately, and then the
Interesting.
foreign power probably would have come in and puppeted it, but who's to say? We don't know.
Britain would have taken some of that, North America back.
I'm French. Where were the French at that time? Where were they
Watching
fighting?
Britain. Yeah, watching Britain. Britain is the
Okay.
only people that can really make or break the
Usually they
Confederacy.
try to screw the British. So.
Well, yeah, up here.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd swoop in, they have Canada, they have Quebec.
Yeah, so they probably would have swooped in if the Confederacy had lost, but like now
That's
we're doing
interesting.
hypotheticals and no one's really saying.
Okay.
Oh,
Really,
fun alternate
every
history.
country is just watching Britain,
Huh,
what they
yeah.
do. And Britain is on the fence about it, like they're talking to the South. They won't acknowledge the South officially, but they're in deals, and Britain is selling them all of the really bad weapons that they've had in storage for years.
I didn't know that.
And they did make a tea set that said President Jefferson Davis to give to Jefferson Davis in the event the South had won. But then when the Union Army wins, they actually give that tea set to President Andrew Johnson. And then would actually serve two former Confederate generals. He would serve them tea in that set when it came to peace talks.
Symbolic.
Any final questions?
The great Andrew Johnson.
How do you know? So studied history in college for a bunch of years. I'm a social studies teacher.
Cool.
You get trained for the job. I have to talk about this with my coworkers. Many tours I've given. I've been asked all sorts of questions. Had to take classes on Civil War and in college, all of that. So.
Cool. Quick on your feet.
7th grade.
Oh.
A handful. Wish you luck.
Yeah, you guys are easier.
This is amazing, thank you. And we had 300 people watching, so appreciate it.
All right, as long as I get a share of the revenue.
For sure, like $20, yeah, that's how much I make.
All right, and wait for me on that landing right there. Wait for me right there.
Cool.
Oh, you just dumped it out on the street. Okay, so, good news, bad news. So, bad news, there's one more flight station we need to go down. Good news, it's not sure like the first. Bad news, they are still very steep, so please take your time. If you fall, there's a lot of paperwork I need to fill out. I have to go first. So the thing about me going first, there's a door at the bottom. The old door, like most things in this house. It has a tendency to work or jam when the weather is cold or wet, like today. So if you see me body slam it, I am a trained professional.
Here's some musical teacher.
You guys are tall too.
I could not.
I wonder how many people have tumbled in those dresses down these stairs. Appreciate it. Well, this is awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. I think so. I'm confused about that. I think we're, I don't know if we're waiting for her or not. But.
Where do we think the 5-year-old?
Something like fell off here. Yeah, we think he might have been trying to touch her.
Oh, this is where the kid fell off.
Oh.
That's where Jefferson Davis's kid died, off this ledge. Oops.
No, we're a national landmark, so they can't really they can do anything to us. We do keep up with stuff like Belmont and our
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the tour. Sorry I couldn't talk to you, but I don't want to interrupt the tour because obviously I don't want to interrupt her. She's very interesting. So I hope you enjoyed it. A little piece of history. Let me know if you like the museum thing. It's not as zany as going out into the street and talking to people. It was raining today, so the dog didn't want to go out. Christiana, thank you again for following me. I appreciate that. Son Goku is apparently here. Well, you better catch up with me, man, because I'm done. I'm about to get lunch. And someone watching from Denmark. Very cool. So thank you guys for watching. Some other people that commented I want to get to. Charlotte, where is this? Richmond, Virginia. Maya, thank you for commenting. Thank you for watching. By the way, still waiting for you to add me on Instagram, Maya, if you're still watching. DODGELANDESMAN. Stop rating, so I'm gonna get some lunch and pick up the dog. But again, tell me if you like this this whole museum vibe, because we could also check out the state capitol and the Edgar Allan Poe Museum tomorrow. So let me know if there's some interest. Until then, we'll probably we might do some street walking if the dog is up for it during the day, but we'll certainly walk along the street at about midnight, 1 a.m. to get all the crazy drunk people downtown. That should be fun. So look and see if there's any extra comments. It's giving mental hospital. Thank you, Crying Queen. Oh, that's a shame. It's cold. I like it better. Whatever that means. Hello from VA. What's up, Anna? Edgar Allan Poe. Wesley votes for Edgar Allan Poe tomorrow. So we might check out Edgar Allan Poe tomorrow. It's giving child predators. Last time I checked, I don't think Edgar Allan Poe was a child predator, but we might have a difference of opinion on who is a child predator. Again, don't think it's Edgar Allan Poe, but have a good day. They see that Nicholas, see what the I'm just commenting on people's comments. Somebody commented it's giving child predators, so that's a new one. But you too, thank you. It's a poem. His poem was there. You checked that? What did I check? I didn't check it. I did not check that, actually, so I don't know. I don't know how to get that documentation. I know a fair amount about the Civil War, but my real area of expertise is like the 1950s, 40s, 60s. So this is new for me. He wrote horror story. Yes, exactly. The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe. Let's see. I wonder if we can make it today. No, it's 421. Well, maybe. If you guys want me to jaunt over the Edgar Allan Poe Museum, we might be able to take a look at it for about a half hour, 20 minutes. But it's about to close, although it's still open for 40 minutes. The drive is no longer than 5 minutes. I'm a child. Well, you know what? This is a very appropriate stream today. There's no cursing. Oh, except for that one comment of us noting on that person's comments. But, you know, if you're a child, that's okay. This is a very appropriate stream to check out. No salty language. And I hope you got yourself educated on the Civil War. Hope you enjoy it. Do you know about his wife's mysterious death? No, I do not. Where are you? I'm in Richmond, Virginia. Thank you for the tour. I signed it. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for following me. I appreciate it. This is my car. I blew out my tire earlier, but luckily I made it. Got my little bumper stickers. I love Dwight Eisenhower. Yeah, I'm cold. I'm going to get in the car so I can talk. I am shaking. A whole lot of shaking going on. Thank you. Nice car. Hey, it's me, Goku. Very cool. Nice little American car. It is very American. I used to have a Fiat Spider, which was impossible to get fixed and eventually busted down, sadly. But I do also have a Fiat Spider. Another kid's watching. I gotta smoke a cigarette, man. I haven't smoked in about 2 hours. I'm a chain smoker. I smoke about a pack and a half, sometimes 2 packs a day. So forgive me while I light up a cigarette. Kids don't smoke cigarettes. Although it'll keep you really fit. If you want to lose weight, you should smoke cigarettes. Kids, smoke cigarettes. I'm kidding, don't smoke cigarettes. How much did it cost you? This was, I traded in my old car, but this is probably like $20,000, give or take, because this was used. I got it on Carvana. It's from 2014, so it wasn't super expensive. Smoke away, thank you. Glad you were joking. There yesterday, if you're looking at the stream, there actually was an actual child. Cancer, yes. I think you're right, Crying Queen. I'm going to be crying for myself when I die in 2 weeks. Turn radio off. Yeah, thank you, Wesley. Good advice. Not that I'm making much money, so a lot of this stuff will be demonetized anyway. Valley Feast, hello. Yeah, my wipers. Thank you, Anna. And I don't even need them. Okay, there you go. Now I don't have the wipers anymore. But yeah, let me know if you want to check out the Poe Museum. I don't know, your wipers are loud. Cool. All right, well, it looks like those are the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I have a Bugatti. Wow. Okay, I don't know if he was joking about the Childs or the Bugatti. Fiats are good cars. Yeah. Big fan of the Fiats. They were good, except they're impossible to get parts to fix. And so if something gasket is blown, you can't really get a new gasket, or you're gonna have to wait a month to get it in. But it was a fun ride, I'll tell you that. The dog likes this car better though, because this has a back seat. Damn, thanks. I don't know why you say damn. You have stocked up. Cigs, have you stocked up? Yeah, those cigs are cheaper here in Virginia. Well, I'm going to North Carolina after, so I bet that they're even cheaper in North Carolina, which is nice. I would like to see your museum. Well, we already saw it, but we can potentially check out the Poe one. He can't talk. He's in the middle of something. I'm not. I can talk now, Maya. Maya, as I said to you, if you want to add me on Instagram, thank you for constantly checking in and being a continued supporter. My Instagram, DODGE, like Dodge, like the car, DODGE, LANDESMAN. Also my Facebook, same thing, Dodge Landesman. Excuse me, I am diabetic. I'm sorry to hear that. Hope the insulin. I hope you can afford insulin. You probably can't. Nice random comment. You and your sense of humor, you'll get in trouble. I bet I will. Somebody says, go to the Poe Museum. I might. When you get in the Super Bowl, who you got in the Super Bowl? Niners fan. For the Super Bowl, it's a tough one because I'm going to go with soup. You know, if it's going to have to be Super Bowl, I'm going to go with soup, because you could put soup in things that are not bowls. You can put soup on a plate. You can put soup in a cup. So Super Bowl, I'm going with soup. Thank you for your questions, Niners fan. Zaddy Chill, maybe you could put the smoke in my coochie. Well, thank you. If you're cute, maybe let me know. You don't look like you are. Well, that's not a nice thing to say. You seem like your hair's a little crazy, and you might be 75 years old. But I might give you a shot. Who knows? I think the oldest I've gone was about 58, give or take. But Crying Queen, let's talk. W Ginger, yep, that's what I am. I have no soul. What are you doing? I'm just shooting the shit in the car. That's pretty much what I'm doing. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, mi amigo. ¿Y tú? Habla español un poco también. Girl, I live in the UK. I don't need to pay. That was a question. How would he know? I don't know what I know. Is Poe from Baltimore? Yeah, I thought he was. Even no, I don't speak Italian. Anna, I am 93 years old. Poe was from Baltimore, was a connection to VA. I think he lived in both. He lived in the Bronx, too. There's like 2 Edgar Allan Poe houses. I know there's one in the Bronx near where he used to live in New York City, and then there's one in Baltimore, and now there's a Poe Museum in Richmond. I think he went all around the Northeast, if I'm not mistaken. All right, guys. I might drive to the Poe Museum. Look at the time. We'll see. No need to apologize. Messi or Ronaldo? I don't know. Ronaldo. And I'm actually 33, Anna. But I'm also voting. Yes, who are you voting for? Humor is on top of. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what it's on top of. It might be on top of your mom. It might be on top of your grandma. But thank you. Whoever the humor is on top of. I will use all my humor, and they will feel it, and they will shake with delight. That is my promise to you. But I might hop off soon. I gotta eat too. I'm gonna, because right now I'm talking. Now I'm totally missing it. So we'll have 20 minutes. Although 20 minutes might be enough. Hi, me and my cousins. You and your cousins. Just making sure there's no kissing cousins. Unless you're from Alabama, then it's probably legal. But hello, me and my cousins. That's not even a question, Cristiano Ronaldo. Always. He's the GOAT. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I kind of look like a GOAT. You're not wrong. I'm voting for the museum. All right. Let's try to get there quick. I'm not gonna sign off, but I'm gonna I might have to sign off. Let me see how far away this is. But I'm gonna exit. The stream will still be on, so don't leave. But I'm gonna have to look at Google Maps to see where the Poe Museum is. Guys, I'm gonna leave the stream blank. You might all have dropped off at this point. Why can't you use reverse cowgirl in Alabama? You might be able to, because family never turns their back at each other. Ha! Very funny. Weird. Well, some people think so. Seriously, Dodge, go eat, love, check museum after. Ugly, am I? I've been called ugly before. So I'm gonna kill myself because he said that. Thank you. Haha, very funny. Sounds like an educated American. Checking out some museums. Been parked for a long time, so should probably. Oh, never mind. So yeah, we looked at some museums. We looked at the Confederate Whitehouse. That was the White House that Jefferson Davis had with his Confederacy when he obviously wanted to try to claim that he had his own country. And after some suggestions, some people watching, although most of you have dropped off, I signed off for about 5 minutes. And now now we have 11 people watching. We had 6 for a moment. So I don't know how much interest there is right now. But yeah, we're going to spend about 20 minutes at the Poe Museum, Edgar Allan Poe, and check out that scene. We just checked out Jefferson Davis. I'm just a traveler. I like to travel around and do some more serious stuff. I'm covering the election for my own YouTube, and I'm going to go to South Carolina. So all these places are sort of on the road to South Carolina. Russia is a force, says C. Roos. Yeah, I've been told ginger, gross. Yeah, you know, some people have openly advocated for a ginger holocaust. So every day I live in fear. And everyone hates me. And I hate myself. I have no soul. You know, we should be eradicated. There should be ginger genocide. So thank you for your support. What's happening? I'm new here. I'm just about to genocide myself because I'm ginger. That's what's happening. He still pulls. That I do. Once in a while. Not all the time, but once in a while I do still pull. You know, it's funny. In Mexico, gingers are considered very sexy. They're considered scum here, bottom of the barrel. Again, it should be a ginger genocide. But in Mexico, I'd consider very exotic. So, to get some pull. Seriously, thank you, Christiana. Go eat love. That's very sweet. Thank you. I think we're friends on Facebook now. And Patty says I'm ugly. I think she said that before. She says sorry. She feels bad. You don't have to apologize, Patty. Because I probably wouldn't get with you either, so. You're probably ugly too. We're probably the same people. Well, maybe we should get together because we're 2 ugly people, so. But you're very mean. You're very unkind. You have to have see, that's the thing, Patty. You seem ugly, and there's a Poe Museum, and you have a bad, mean personality. So, you know, if you want to die alone with your cats, I hope your cats kill you. That would be great. I'm kidding. Thank you for watching. You helped the algorithm. Nothing I haven't heard before. But Patty says I'm ugly. I did not mean to. I'm kidding. I'm just messing around with you, Patty. Don't worry about it. We're about to park. Ginger gross. So I heard that one. Somebody talk about Russia. All right, I'm parking. Ugly. Yeah. Everybody tells me that. My mom always told me how ugly I was. But she should have aborted me. So, Mom agrees with you. No, I'm kidding. She never said that. All right, let's check out the Poe Museum. Unless you guys just want to call me ugly the whole time. I'm kidding. Thank you. I think I'm decent looking enough in all reality. I'm probably a 6 out of 10. I'm a 10 in Mexico. I'm a 4 in America. So I'm gonna say a solid 6. Some people hate redheads, some people love it. Hey, I'm not overweight. I got a big Jewish nose. I'm half Jewish. Certainly don't have any muscles, but could be worse. Aw, Anna says, what? You're handsome. I appreciate that. Well, Patty's been calling me ugly, so. And there's a reminder to respect our guidelines. Don't respect your guidelines, man. If you want to call me ugly, you can call me ugly. That's fine. Israel. Oh, cool. You're from Israel. Very cool. They got a whole scene there. All right, guys, we're going to go to the museum. Take a look at a little Richmond skyline. Oh, whoops. Wrong way. Skyline. Very cool. And later tonight, we'll walk around the city a little more, maybe even with the dog. We'll check that out. But here is the Poe Museum. Edgar Allan Poe used to live here. He was, of course, one of the great dark poets of our time. So take a look at that. Beautiful skyline. I'm liking the city vista. Got a way to cross. That's the stone facade of the house, though. So, hoping you like it. Choose God, please. People. Choose God, people. Well, some people feel that way. I admire your opinion. Poe attended UVA. Yes. That's right. Thank you. Right. So, I lived in Baltimore. Youth was Richmond. Both the Raven, it's next door. Cool. The oldest house still standing in Richmond. This is it, guys. This Poe's house is the oldest house in Richmond. Cool. Oldest house in Richmond, Edgar Allan Poe. Pretty stone facade. We'll see when it was built before we head in. Probably built I don't even fucking know. 1737 by Jacob E.G. A gift in 1912 from Mr. and Mrs. Granville. Been restored. Placed on the custody of the Edgar Allan Poe Shrine. So let's take a look. Hey, good, how are you?
Thanks.
Better late than ever.
We're looking to go through the museum?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So it is $10 for an adult ticket.
Cool.
We do close at 5.
Yeah, I figured,
It'll
yeah.
take about 30 or 45 minutes.
Okay,
But,
that makes sense.
okay, cool.
Sweet.
Here you go.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you're gonna go
that way
actually through
first.
that door on the left. behind the
Okay,
bookcase.
perfect, thank you. Oh, there's a cat. Cool. We'll say hello to the cat, too. Old stone house, birth of a poet. So this is where Poe was born, I guess. Wonder if you can go in. I don't know if you can or not. No, no, it's not. Beautiful facade. I'm going to take this opportunity because I'm with my dog all the time to try to pet this cat. This black cat, very apropos of Poe. Cat does not give a shit about me. Cat's like, I'm getting this pussy. It's funny, I'm petting this cat. Cat does not care. It's like nothing ever happened. Hey. Well, alright. I'll let you do your thing. Nice backyard he had. So I think he grew up pretty wealthy, obviously. It is beautiful. This whole city is really stunning, in my opinion. Beautiful fountain. People's little memorials for Edgar Allan Poe. Like that somebody did a Fairly Odd Parents. Some Japanese stuff. Cool. It's a beat up Poe. Poe after a bar fight. Cute. Yeah, cat's very cute. I have a dog, so I don't ever get to pet cats that much anymore. Because my dog always chases after cats. Poe's mysterious death. So he left Richmond, heading to Philadelphia, turned up semi-conscious back home in Baltimore on Election Day. Dressed in somebody, wow, this is interesting. Poe's mysterious death. 5 days after leaving Richmond on a business trip to Philadelphia, Edgar Allan Poe turned up semi-conscious in a Baltimore polling place on Election Day, dressed in someone else's clothes, with no recollection of the past week's activities. An editor named Joseph Snodgrass sent Poe to a nearby hospital, where Dr. John Moran attended to the poet. Poe's memory never returned. He passed the next 4 days conversing with imaginary figures and spent his last night in a violent delirium. The only clue Poe provided was the name Reynolds, which he shouted repeatedly during his final hours. He has 26 published theories about his death.
I like it a lot.
That's very cool. So back in the 40s, some gifts left on his grave. His first complete works. Works signed by Muriel Shaw. If you guys see this, Poe dedicated his poems to Marie Louise in MLS, who inscribed a copy of the works of Edgar Allan Poe to her father. 2 years before Poe's death, she would discuss his condition with a doctor named Valentine Mott, determined that Poe had an irregular heartbeat and suffering from a lesion on the side of the brain. So this is his first ever complete works that he wrote, 1850, pretty cool. So he dropped out, but he dropped out of the University of Virginia, so he has a lot of history with Richmond. But this is still his commemoration, because they obviously honor him after he was dead, or after he became famous.
But I just think about things like that. I just gotta remember one bump thing that we was for breakfast.
This is his first biographer, and this is a bit of information, interesting information too. Most of what we know about Poe is wrong. This is because his first biographer was his worst enemy, Reverend Griswold, a failed poet turned anthologist and editor who wielded considerable power to make or break author's career, including or not including them in his popular anthologies. Poe not only challenged his authority, but ridiculed him in lectures and in print. So if you guys see this, this is a biographer that is responsible for incorrect information. His final days, newly engaged, about to start his own magazine. Poe had every reason to expect a bright future. He left Richmond on September 1849 on a business trip to Philly. After leaving Richmond by steamship, Poe disappeared for several days before a newspaper reporter found him semi-conscious and dressed in someone else's clothes, as we talked about. This is cool. This is Edgar Allan Poe's original waistcoat vest. Thank you. Glad you find it interesting. Thank you guys for commenting. So he even dressed, even though he was broke. Very cool. Edgar Allan Poe's uncle. Poe was found dying in a Baltimore polling place. His uncle, Henry Herring, refused to care for him, so Poe's friend Joseph Snodgrass took him to the hospital. A week later, Herring posted Poe's wake and paid for his coffin. 26 years after Poe's death, when his remains were moved to a better location in the cemetery and given a proper monument, that coffin crumbled. Poe's skeleton fell out of it. God, that's dark. Poe's last portrait. This is the last portrait. Retained tintype. 2 weeks before his death, Poe sat for his last photograph in a studio about 9 blocks down Main Street from here. Compared with photographs taken 1 year earlier, Poe has lost weight and appears warier. Oh, this is the photograph. This is the actual last photograph of Edgar Allan Poe. 2 weeks before his death, Poe sat for the last photo Studio Block's not about 9 blocks down from Main Street, from here. Compared with photographs taken just 1 year earlier, Poe has lost weight and appears warier. The original, which belonged to Poe's last fiancée, Amira Shelton, was ruined during a cleaning attempt in 1894 and has been missing ever since. About 6 years after Poe sat for the original photo, Shelton allowed his copy to be made. Long lost in private collection is tintype, his earliest known copy of Poe's final photograph. Pretty cool. I love Poe, says Christiana. Thank you. I read almost his stories as follows. I've read a good amount of them. He's a great author.
Should I go through that way?
Grew up in DMV area and never remembered Poe was from VA. Yeah, a lot of historic places are back. Yeah, that's why I felt like I had to do Museum Day while I was here. Here are Poe's boot hooks. Use them to, you know, when people say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, this is literally what they're talking about. There actually were bootstraps. I didn't even know that. I thought that was an expression. Edgar Allan Poe used these hooks, a common gentleman's accessory, to pull up his boots. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. On his last visit to Richmond, shortly before his death, he left them at his sister's house. Exchange Hotel picture. Silver-plated picture came from Richmond's Exchange Hotel, where Poe gave his last public reading about 2 weeks before his death. The novelist John Cook, who witnessed the performance, later recalled that Poe's wonderfully clear and musical voice speedily brought the audience under its spell. Those who heard the strange voice once never afterwards forgot it. The lecture ended in the midst of applause. And of course, here's the beautiful raven. For Allan Poe's trunk contained most of his possessions. That was it. This is his walking. This is his pimp stick. Got to keep your pimp stick strong. On his last night in Richmond, Poe left this walking stick a few blocks from here at the home of John Carter. The doctor said that Poe left around midnight carrying Carter's sword and cane, stepped across Main Street to Sadler's Restaurant. Very early next morning, Poe boarded a Baltimore-bound steamship, never to return. It's a monument, 1909, to Poe. Lock of Poe's hair. That's kind of weird. That is Edgar Allan Poe's actual hair. These strands of Poe's hair were cut from his head shortly after his death by friend Joseph Snodgrass, the man who, upon finding him ill in a Baltimore polling place and tavern, sent Poe to Washington College Hospital, where he died 4 years later. After Poe's death, Snodgrass spent his remaining years lecturing about Poe's death. As a vocal temperance advocate, temperance is a restriction of alcohol, Snodgrass used Poe's untimely death as a cautionary example of the dangers of alcohol, even though Poe's attending physician, John Moran, claimed that Poe did not appear to have been drinking. So here are fragments of Poe's coffin. That's interesting. 26 years after the burial in an unmarked grave, Poe's remains are relocated across the cemetery to the spot on which his monument now stands. During the move, the coffin fell apart, and this fragment was taken. I don't know what he's talking about right here. And this fragment was taken. According to those present, the flesh and funeral robes had, of course, crumbled into dust. The skeleton was in good condition, the arms lying as they were arranged in death, and in the back, the leg bones in natural position. The teeth looked pearly white and were in excellent preservation. Here's a key to his trunk, said to have been found in Poe's pocket after his death. This key opens the trunk on display in the gallery. The question of why Poe would still be carrying this key if he were found in someone else's clothing remains unanswered. So who knows? Some people think somebody might have murdered Poe. Hard to say. Might not be much beyond this. We could take a look. I think this is I guess I'm glad we decided to go here because I don't think you need much. There's only one room. So, but part of the fun is looking at this beautiful, beautiful facade. But I think we only have that room. Let's see if there's anything else, but I doubt it. Oh, here's something interesting. Poe's death theories. These are all the death theories. Brain lesions, phrenitis, illuminating gas, alcohol, beating, cooping, I don't even know what the hell that is, epilepsy, nervous prostration, piss too much, meningitis, heart disease, early childhood trauma, diabetes, hypoglycemia, toxic disorder, brain hemorrhage, mercury poisoning, pneumonia, alcohol, dehydrogenase deficiency, delirium, pardon me. You can go yellow YouTube. Delirium, tremens, rabies, syphilis, murder, chronic CO exposure, brain tumor, tuberculosis, meningitis. So a lot of different theories on how and why he died. This is pretty. Oh, I got more. What time is it? We still got time. 8 minutes. Post-time saw great advances in the study of mental illness with more humane treatment and new experimental mental hospitals around North America. Poe's loves. Devastated by the death of his wife, Edgar Allan Poe devoted his remaining years to composing his cosmological essay, Eureka, and to pursuing ill-fated relationships with a series of women. God, Lord knows I've been there. Nancy Richmond refused to leave her husband for him, and Sarah Helen Whitman broke off her engagement to Poe after 1 month. Finally, Poe engaged himself to his childhood sweetheart, Elmira Royster Shelton, but died 10 years before they would have married. Just his luck. Of the women whose sympathy he depended on during his despair and illness and constant travel of his final years, Poe wrote, "They have been angels of mercy to me and have tenderly led me from the verge of ruin while men stood aloof and mocked." And this is his last love. We could see her. There we go. Emma. Will you hit it? I might hit it. Here's the engagement ring. Poe's last engagement ring. Here are her glasses. Gift from Poe to Shelton. According to Shelton family tradition, Poe gave a decanter and drinking glass set from which, right here, from which this piece was taken and to his fiancée. Despite his poverty and mounting debts, Poe is also known to have given Shelton a silver locket with their initials engraved on it, and a mother-of-pearl purse that also bore their initials. This piece remains with Shelton's descendant until her great-great-grandson and donated it to the Poe Museum. Poe's last poem, Annabel Lee. One of Poe's most popular poems, Annabel Lee, was not printed until after his death. As soon as it was published, the ballad of a man's undying devotion for his love lost became a smash hit, and at least 4 women from his life stepped forward to claim he had written it about them. Among those portraits can be seen in the gallery are Annie Richmond, Sarah Helen Whitman, and Poe's last fiancée, Elmira Shelton. Most readers, however, believe Poe wrote the poem about his wife, Virginia Clem Poe, who died young. The portrait also hangs in the room. Let's take a look at some. There's one of his biddies. This is one of his girls. Whitman, Sarah Helen Whitman, was a Providence, Rhode Island spiritualist. So there's a lot of people back then that were interested in the occult. You have to think the 1840s, give or take, a lot of people were doing seances, and that was a huge movement. It was the first time people were moving away from Christianity. Because remember, the U.S. was founded upon the freedom of religion, so there's this liberty and this excitement to do your own thing religiously, create new religions. So even though the U.S. was started as a Christian nation, it was the first nation that gave their citizens permission to not be Christian and believe in some sort of other spiritual deity, which I think Poe is also an advocate for. So yeah, the spiritualist era is an interesting part of history here. Poe without his mustache, in case you were ever curious. What do you think? Thank you. Great content, Margarita says. I appreciate it. Very interesting stuff. Thank you, guys. Yeah, really cool stuff. So Poe without his mustache, the same month that his poem The Raven first appeared, Pentagrams magazine published this engraving of a newly famous author. It is different to recognize it, might be because he had not yet grown his mustache, for which he is now known. Poe is not pleased with the likeness, writing, it scarcely resembles me at all. Here's another one of his girls, Frances. Now, Lynch, yet another one.
And just letting you know, we are closing up in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool, thank you. Is this it? I mean, I went to that other room, and I assume there's stuff up here. Is there more to check out?
Room up there. It's
Okay.
got some seating with some books, but
Okay.
exhibit-wise, it's all first floor.
Oh, sweet, okay, good to know. I will be on about 2 minutes. That works. So we gotta get out of here, guys, understandably. Poe's bride, one of the most controversial and least understood aspects of Poe's life is his marriage to his 13-year-old cousin Virginia when he was 27. I see where the child predator comment plays in. You're right about that. Whoever commented about 20 minutes ago when we were talking about Edgar Allan Poe. Let's read this again. One of the most controversial and least understood aspects of Poe's life was his marriage to his 13-year-old cousin Virginia when he was 27. When he secured employment at the Southern Literary Messenger, Poe brought his widowed aunt, Maria Poe Clem, and her daughter Virginia to Richmond and married the latter in a house about 8 blocks west of here. It was initially a happy marriage in which the trio enjoyed playing music, planting flowers and gardens. She was able to play Fortnite, and in the company of their tortoiseshell cat, Katerina. Even Poe's enemies praised Virginia's air of refinement and good breeding. An accomplished musician, she spoke Italian fluently and composed poetry, including a touching tribute to her husband. Unfortunately, tuberculosis left Virginia invalid for the last few years of her life and brought her death at the age of 24. Creepy. Poe's ladle. Soup ladle from Poe's home. This is a little letter. I actually like reading some of these letters if I could read them. I can't read that one. Poe's wife's trinket box. Poe's wife's mirror. Cool. The death of a beautiful woman. Poe's wife, Virginia, was not the only woman in his life to die young. Jesus. You can see why he's so dark. Among these were his mother, his foster mother, and his first love, and his wife. In the days when tuberculosis raged unchecked, and when 1 in 6 women died after giving birth, women's life expectancies were much shorter than today. And the deaths of young women feature prominently in popular novels and poems. Poe considered a woman's death the most poetical topic in the world. While he was not alone in writing about death, Poe's poetry on the topic is unique, that is still being read. Obviously, the Raven, Annabel Lee, Lenore, the Sleeper are now among the best-known languages in poems in the English language. This is creepy. A lock of his wife's hair. He had a lot of wives. Post payments for the Raven. That's cool. This is his first ever. That's how they did checks back then in 1845. This is Poe's receipt for $10 paid him on the account of the Southern Literary Messenger on April 7th, 1845. His only contribution published in the previous month's issue of the magazine was The Raven, but still a new poem having first appeared in February 1845 issue of the American Review. Close it up?
Yeah.
All set, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right, I guess we got to see most of it. If not all. Now I have to figure out how to get out of here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Famous cat. Yeah, I know, creepy, right? For Virginia's age. Sign off first, but I'm gonna look at some of your comments. Wesley says his poetry is no excuse for his behavior, but it doesn't take away from it. If you read his stuff, you know he's weird. He's always been a bizarre dude. Although, you know, of course, tragically back in that era, that wasn't that radical of a thing. Dodge, you're a gem. Thank you, Christiana. Thank you for your continued support. All right, guys, I'm going to hop off. I got to get some lunch, pick up the dog, figure out what he wants to do. If you want me to sign back on in about 2 hours, just to walk around Richmond with the dog, let me know. But thank you guys for watching. About 2-hour stream, so I think we got a nice amount of people. And yeah, we'll do probably some more museums tomorrow. Let me know if you want to do the state capitol. and we'll check that out. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye-bye.